Hello, this is Christy Strickler with GetItScrap.com. In this video, I'm going to share ideas and techniques for adding trendy contour lines to your scrapbook pages. If you're not familiar with contour lines, they're essentially lines on a topographical map that represent elevations. This trend emerged in 2014 during CHA, that's the Craft and Hobby Association show, and they began to appear on scrapbook pages. We're going to take a look at how our creative team made their own scrapbook pages that incorporate this wonderfully organic and representational motif. In our first example, we're going to see that you can use pre-printed or pre-made pattern paper from scrapbook kits to create a layout with contour lines. Now, of course, for digital scrapbookers, there are kits available with that as well, and hybrid scrapbookers could look there for printing off their own contour paper. This first layout is by Marcia Fortunato, and she says, "One weekend last month, my husband, my son, and I took an impromptu road trip through parts of Ohio." This layout is an overview of that trip. This contour lined pattern paper came in a Studio Calico scrapbook kit I received last fall. It was perfect for this layout since we traveled through areas of the state that varied in topography, and our primary destinations were ancient mound works. In addition to the pattern paper, I echoed the contour lines by outlining and matting my photos and some of the embellishments. So what do you do if you want to use a topographical or contour line map on your scrapbook page but you don't have one? Well, you could go online and find a map and you could print it out to use it. The map could be from anywhere, but you could also find a map for that special place that you've been. Perhaps your favorite hiking spot, like our next creative team member has, or the city or town that you've visited. Kelly Prang says, "Contour lines remind me of topographical maps, so I used such a map of a favorite local hiking spot along with paper that had contour lines layered over notebook paper. I lowered the opacity of the top layered paper. I drew color inspiration from the map, which featured light green with touches of red." You can also work at creating your own topographical map or contour line inspired pattern paper or embellishments. In our next layout, Judean Patton Clark has painted, using watercolor, her own contour lines. She says, "I took this picture last summer of my husband and two daughters going for a sunset swim. The light was magical, as was the experience of being on the lake in the summertime with our little family. I knew I wanted to capture something about the magic of our location, as well as depict a sense of place and season, island, lake, and summer. I made the two little watercolor paintings with this in mind and used a DIY tutorial I had found on the web. The tutorial was to paint agate slices, but the concentric organic shapes looked like contour maps to me. I chose colors that went with my photos and used them as supporting elements on my page. The paintings remind me of the islands dotting our lake, and the blues and greens evoke the colors of the water and the trees. I chose a Henry David Thoreau quote as my title because I thought it fit in exceptionally well with both the little canvas I used to paint it on and the magic of the natural world." So as you can see, she's created her own pattern paper, but it doesn't have to exactly be a contour line map. It can be representational. You can find something that reminds you of the contour lines and use those on your page. This next layout continues with the concept that the contour lines can be representational and you can make them up in whatever shape that you want them to be. Sean Fair has journaled in the shape of contour lines, and she says, "This page gives me a chance to put down thoughts on how my eyesight has changed over the years. As my photo contains the strong black lines of my new glasses, I sought to echo those by turning my journaling into contours. I planned with a rough sketch first, how many lines I would need, before lightly penciling the contours onto my pattern paper, and then journaling by turning my paper as I wrote." Our final layout shows another way for you to create your own contour lines. So remember, you don't have to have a map unless you feel that's necessary. You can make your own contour line paper or embellishments to use on your scrapbook layouts. Amy Kingsford says, "This page is about a family trip to Yellowstone. I used a few different contour pattern journal cards and pattern papers in the design of this page, one of which I made myself, starting with a swoopy piece of digital word art, which I selected and then repeatedly expanded and stroked. One tip is to vary the pixels by which you are expanding the selection for a more interesting look. You can also fill in the rings of your design with different colors or opacities using your paint bucket tool. I thought this trendy pattern was particularly suited to my page, not only because it is a travel-themed page, but also because the contour pattern papers remind me of the geyser pools we saw at Yellowstone." We've seen several examples of using contour lines on your scrapbook pages. You can use them literally in the sense that you're choosing a map or perhaps a piece of patterned scrapbook paper and you're going to use that on your scrapbook layout. You can also use them more figuratively by creating your own representational embellishments, or perhaps even using them to symbolize a place where you are in your life right now. These layouts were originally part of an article for Get It Scrapped, and we will link up to that article for you in the notes that go along with this video. For more scrapbooking inspiration, visit getitscrapped.com/blog.